Welcome to the Good Karma Sport Fishing Podcast. I'm your host, Captain Ryan Van Fleet. Happy Easter, everybody. Hope everybody's in good health. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. A couple things here before I get started. I want to thank everybody that's joined the Facebook group. The Good Karma Sport Fishing Podcast is the name of the group, and you can find the podcast in Facebook by doing a search for the Good Karma Sport Fishing Podcast. So it's a private group. And there's a set of rules that I ask you guys to fill out. You need to fill out all of them. So I am declining requests now for people that are not filling out all the rules because I just don't see why you can't fill out all the rules. I just can't understand that. But the group's private, and if you want to be part of the group, you need to agree to the rules. That's all I ask. So also, too, I would really appreciate you guys that have been tuning in for a long while and are getting something out of the podcast, that you go on the iTunes and you do a rate and review for me. Now, I haven't asked for that yet, but now I'm asking. So it's been almost 2 years now. So I really appreciate you guys tuning in. I put out some great information for you. So I'd like to, hopefully you guys can do a rate and review for me. I would really appreciate it. And it's the motivation to keep putting out some good podcasts for you guys. Okay, so a couple other things here. I have one more Adrenaline custom rod that I have personally here in the Keys. So if anybody's local that wants to order one, let me know. It's a 3080 spiral wrap that's designed for deep water mutton fishing and live bait fishing. It's a killer rod. I match these rods with the current rods I have. I've either got matched with a Speedmaster or a Talica 16. The Speedmasters I use are 16s and 12s. I love the smaller reels for deep water mutton fishing and for live bait fishing as well. I use them for live bait fishing. I use them for Wahoo fishing with goggle eyes. I use them for surface baiting for sailfish when I do sailfish, which is very rare now. So I do have one more in house. So I sold one this week to a good client of mine that is doing really well. So for himself, as far as fishing goes, he's been listening to the podcast for a couple of years now, and he's chartered me a couple times. So he's one of the last that I let charter with me that has his own boat. So I no longer take charters with people that have their own boats. Now, for guys that have their own boats, I have a separate program for that as far as the consulting business goes. So just to be aware, I've changed my charter program. I no longer take charters from guys that own their own boats. So there are reef consultants for that, guys like Miami Mutton. He's been around for a very long time, Benny. I highly recommend Benny. I know Benny back from the day from Florida Sportsman. Him and I communicate back and forth once in a while. He's just been a really good guy, in my opinion. Now, from time to time, Benny will send me charters from guys that don't have their own boats, and I really appreciate that. So, like I said, I've known him. But that's who I recommend, and I'm sure if he's booked, he's got other guys that he can recommend. Now, as for my fishing program right now, like I said, I'm shut down completely because of the COVID-19 situation. Now, to get into the Florida Keys right now, you have to be a resident, and they have a checkpoint, or you have to be a contractor or something. It's really it's kind of crazy. But anyways, it's there, and there's just nobody coming in and out of the Keys, and I can't maintain distance on my boat. So it's just not it's just smart. We're going to be part of the solution. So we're shutting down, and we're making the best of it every day. We're staying positive. I'm actually extremely busy, just like charter fishing. And when I am going out fishing, I'm making some tutorials that I'll release later. So for people that are, that follow the podcast, it's just a good time for me to grab some videos and make some tutorials while I have time. And I've got some other things that I'm working on as well. Okay, so I want to just talk a little bit about what I've seen this week and talk to you about early season dolphin fishing. Now, these are just my thoughts and all that good stuff. So first, most of you guys know that big dolphins swim west. There's usually like two birds on them this time of year. They're usually frigate birds this time of year. The smaller birds haven't made their way here yet. So this time of year, you have to be on the lookout for the big blackbirds, your frigate birds. Now, early season dolphin fishing, the fish can be anywhere. My favorite zones are 200 to 600 feet, okay? Which leads me to this past week. Like I mentioned, I was just kind of like I'm kind of burned out on wahoo fishing, and I really wanted to start like getting some things dialed in with dolphin fishing, getting the outriggers back into play, and get some baits, get the sea witches out, get them rigged, and just kind of get back into like doing some warm up dolphin fishing, which is what I do every year around Easter, around this moon. Now, like I told you guys, I think it was in my last podcast or the podcast before, that this April moon, there's always a push of larger fish. Now, what was great about this moon is that we had some bigger tides and we had some water that was moving. Now, the April moon started showing, early, okay, because it was a supermoon. So what happened is that your currents were picking up and your tides were getting a little bit bigger earlier, which allowed for it set up a nice current edge, okay? And plus we had some nice southeast breeze and prior to the moon, which helped. So anyway, so I want to make a long story short is that we had a nice edge that set up out like in 250 to 300 feet, and it set up for like 3 to 4, actually 5 days. And with that edge, since it had a chance to set up, all that bait got in there, and there were flying fish everywhere, and there were big pods of squid that were actually that I was marking. Now, I knew there were squid because everything I was catching was throwing it up. So I was catching bonitos, tunas, and the wahoo, and they were throwing up squid parts. And on the first day I was out there fishing the edge, I caught some tunas. I got out there really late, and they were loaded with little squid, and I started putting 2 and 2 together and went back through my books. And I've got a stack of logs that it was funny, but I'll show you guys a picture. And I went through and I found some notes about a squid migration in April and how they move. Somebody had taught me this years ago, and I was like, wow, okay, well, I kind of then I had a good friend call me and say he was out on Sunday, and he caught a nice wahoo and some dolphin on that edge. And so I was out the day before, but I got out there in the afternoon, and it was like I missed everything. So what I did was we talked about it, and I had an edge where I was at, but nothing like he had. So I went out on Monday. I think it was Monday. Yeah, Monday before the moon, and that edge was still there, and I found 2 frigate birds, and I got a wahoo that morning, and then I went out and I had 2 ballyhoo on the surface over Wild Willie's Witches. I was looking for dolphin, and I got a nice bull that was about 10 to 12 pounds, and I got a nice cow that was like 22 pounds. Now, if I would have had another ballyhoo out, I probably would have got that bull that was swimming with that big cow, but I didn't. I only had 2 on the surface, and usually that bull eats last, and the cow and the smaller bull ate first. So, or somebody got it, who knows? But anyway, so I was happy, and then I got a couple other tunas, and then everything was done. So the next day, it was Melinda's birthday. We went out, and it was rough that morning. Now, one thing about the Seakeeper, guys, is the Seakeeper doesn't stop the up and down waves. So we stuck in close, and just as the bite was starting, it was getting a little too rough, and it was Melinda's birthday, so we just called it and came home. Now, the bite was late in the afternoon, and we caught a nice tuna and a big kingfish, but the bite was a little later in the morning, so we went in right before it started, and then my buddy Bennett, he ended up catching a nice 42-pound wahoo on that edge and a smaller one. So they were there still, but we just didn't make it there. So, but that just tells you. And then the next day I went back out, conditions were favorable, and I went early because I knew that edge was going to fall apart because the wind was done, and it was a moon, so I knew it was going to be like early, and then things were going to start falling apart because the current was going to go to shit on me. So, and that's what happened. Once the wind kind of let off a little bit and it got jet flat calm, that bait kind of disappeared. But I got him right away in the morning before that happened. And then yeah. So I didn't bother going out to 600 feet or anything that day. But earlier in the week, I did take a peek out there after I caught the fish. I was like, yeah, I just want to run out, check out the conditions, and I had enough fish, and I just wanted to go for a boat ride just to see what it would look like out there. Guys, it's dead. It was dead out there. There was no weed, and there was no flying fish. Everything was in on the edge where that line had set up, that current edge, and everything was stabilized there. The current was really nice. The water was really blue, but there was lots of skipjacks out there, and I've seen a lot of guys running around. So usually when you get out to like 1,000 feet, you're like, for me, I'm like, yeah, this time of year I could, really care less. So then I ran back in and called it a day. But if you guys see birds, you got to be patient. Okay. If you guys like frigate birds this time of year, you got to be patient. And my biggest pet peeve as the guide is when I see somebody that like runs into them and does a lot of stupid stuff. So now, one thing about my podcast is I really am trying to teach people how not only but how to like handle yourself on the water as far as what you do when you see birds. So like one, if guy's already there, two guys can fish a bird if one guy's fishing it wrong. So I want you guys to be aware of that. If one guy's fishing it wrong, then it's like anything else. It's a race, and you just have to learn how to read a bird. That's the thing. I did a lot of duck hunting growing up. I know what birds do and how they. I mean, if you're a duck hunter, you know how to read a bird and what he's looking at. So my advice is you got to really take a look at the bird and see which way he's looking. Watch his head. You can see how he's dipping his head into the water and watching. So you have to learn that just because how you see him flying. So if you can get close and you see how he's tipping his head and his angles, then you can see what he's looking at. And that's where you want to be with the boat. So you have to remember, like I said, big fish head west. And if there's there's usually two frigate birds. But I don't know, this time of year, if you see one, you're lucky. And the smaller fish are swimming to the east. That's the general rule that you have to remember. Big fish head west, small fish head east. So it's not always like that, but most of the times it is. Now, I love to like I said, I don't like to run and gun up on fish, okay? And I don't like to troll small lures. This time of year, the big fish are eating flying fish. Okay, big dolphin, and it's funny, but I'll see guys, working like early season turtles. Okay, the fish are going to be on turtles, and I'll talk about that coming up and when to be looking for turtles. But I love it when some guy he's got 6 rods out and he's got all small lures and he's trying to work a turtle. Okay, I love those guys. So just let you know. So if you're one of them, I love you. But the trick is that you got to have a rigged ballyhoo out. And the reason why I love those guys is that they're going to pick off those small fish from me first, and then I can come through with ballyhoo and get the bigger fish. Don't believe me? It's a true statement. So that's what you do. So, and I troll quick. I don't troll slow. I like to troll 7 to 8 mile an hour with ballyhoo because big fish want a fast moving bait, and that's just how it works. So the trick is you got to get down sea of the birds and you got to wait, or you figure out which way the turtle's swimming, and you get down sea and you just be patient, man. You gotta let them find you sometimes, and that's just how it works. So you see the fish, you troll fast, and then you get out in front of it. And you got to get him to see the bait, and you got to make it look like it's running away from him. Fish don't like a suicidal bait, okay? So it's just like when you're sitting at the marina and you throw I want you to sit at the marina, you've got mangrove snappers there, I want you to throw a ballyhoo in the water and watch how the fish eats it. But if you have a live bait in your well, pick it up, injure it, throw it away, and then watch what happens to that fish and how he chases it. So just how it works. So I think I mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to say it again. This time of year, I like to fish in the spring, 200 to 400 feet. Sometimes in the 150, depending on if there's a nice edge in there, how blue the water is. Sometimes in April, I'll catch them depending on how many there are. I can remember there had been a lot of hard easterly wind in April, and I was heading out to go fishing, and it was too rough for me to troll, so I set up on the edge to go yellowtail fishing with my clients, and I had a big bull swim up to my boat off Pickles Reef when I was there yellowtail fishing, and swam up to my bowl in 65 foot of water, and I threw out a pilchard and I got him. So all of a sudden the waves let down. I said, we're going dolphin fishing. And sure enough, all the fish were tucked in 150 and 220, and we limited out, and we did really well, and we limited out really quick. So those are the little things you need to keep an eye on. So if you have a dolphin swim up to you in 65 feet, you better be pulling that anchor, and hopefully you got your dolphin fishing gear, because there's going to be more of them. So 9 times out of 10, there's going to be more of them. Those are some things you guys need to think about. And in the spring, I'm always ready for that. So, or you can go out and set up some drifts with some live bait, get with easterly with the wind and with some pilchards, and put them out on your flats, and you'll get them that way as well. I catch so many dolphin by just letting them swim up to me in the spring. So many in close while everybody's way out. I can remember years where everybody was bitching that there was no dolphin. So what I did was I did a lot of power drifting for muttons, and I caught more dolphin that way, big dolphin, rather than troll for them. So my clients would be all bummed that we weren't go trolling. And I go, well, 9 times out of 10, we're going to catch them while we're mutton fishing. They're like, what do you mean? I go, just trust me. So you don't necessarily need to troll baits for them. So like I said, 200 to 400 feet in the spring for me, sometimes into 150, depending on where the edge is at and where the bait's at, and out to 600. That's, in my opinion, like right now is a good area to be focusing on. And then later on, you're going to see that they're going to push out the 750 and all that good stuff out to 850 and then out to the sword grounds. So when you see those guys start catching them on the sword grounds and you get a calm day, then I would fill up your boat with gas and go get them. So that means there's probably an edge out there, or there's some debris that's starting to float through, and you'll see that pattern stick together for a couple days. That's really all I got for today, guys. I've got to go. We're going to do Easter here, of course, at home today, and chill out and make some burgers and all that good stuff. So finish up the Tiger King. Oh, my God, what a show. Crazy. Okay, so I'm going to end it with this. First, I want you guys to keep this one thing in mind this year. Leave the small fish for the boat behind you, okay? Keep that in mind. Leave the small fish for the boat behind you guys this year. Go out there with that confidence every day that you're going to do that. So keep that in mind and say to yourself that when you leave the dock. It's not arrogance, man. It's confidence, okay? That's what I'm hoping that I can, with all these skills that I've taught you guys through the podcasts, I've given you guys enough tools to go out there and fish successfully, even on tough days. Now, go back and listen to the podcasts. I'm getting a lot of questions about stuff. Guys, I buried so many nuggets in those podcasts, and I did it for a reason, okay? It's because I wanted you guys to find it. So it's like a treasure hunt, man. So go back and listen to the podcasts. There's a lot of stuff in them, and some of the stuff I didn't even know I said, and I said it. So it's in there. So go back while you're in quarantine or during the week if you can't fish. Go back and listen to the podcast, and you guys are going to pick up on so much. Go back to the beginning ones. Yeah, those beginning ones are really rough, man. Some of them are really rough. I'm like, I read them from a script. I was like, I don't want to do this. I was not like, didn't know where this was going to go. So, but there's so much in there. So go back and listen to them, and you're going to pick up on so much. Okay, so in the future, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the downrigger because I'm getting so many questions about the downrigger that I will address that, but I have to put together some details on that because it is quite complicated. It's one of those run at your own risk situations. Now, I own 3 downriggers, and I own them for a reason because shit does break. And it's running those things is complicated. So I always encourage people to learn how to run inline planers. I've just been doing this downrigger thing for so long, and I actually love downriggers. So it's something that I grew up on, and I just love them. So I run them, and I figured out different tricks to make them work. And there's certain seat conditions where they don't work right, so I have to make adjustments. And then I want to make sure I give you guys the proper information on how to run them. So that's why I'm not like coming out right away and talking about them because number one, they are complicated a little bit if you don't get them to run right. There are some tricks, and I don't want you guys to end up breaking gear because how I run them is going to be a lot different than how you guys run them. So, but I will address it for the guys that really want to learn about it, and I will be doing that here in the future. So you're just going to have to stay tuned to them. But I have talked about that kind of stuff in previous podcasts and in the show notes. So you'll have to go back through and you're going to have to re-listen to them and check them out because it's all there for you guys. And you just have to go through and listen to them, man. Nothing's easy. So, but the information's there, and it's a library for you guys. That's why I've left them on my webpage for you guys to go back and look through as you need information. So it's kind of like having a digital magazine. So just something to keep in mind. That's it. So make sure you guys go in and rate and review me on Apple if I really like that because it's just motivation for me to keep putting out the podcast with really good information. So thank you in advance. And if you're a listener, please join up to the Good Karma Sport Fishing Podcast. I don't allow trolls in there. So if you're trolling for fishing reports, you're not going to get it in there. So this is for guys that are listeners and true fans and that want to get better. So that's the Good Karma Sport Fishing Facebook group, and just enter a search in Facebook. And if you want to see what I'm doing as far as the fishing goes, you can follow me on Instagram, Good Karma Sport Fishing _FL_keys. I'll put some short tutorials in there. A couple things to look forward to. I will be, like I said, the downrigger. I'll be showing you guys more about the bait strips because they are, in my opinion, the absolute best bait for wahoo that catch wahoo consistently, not just when it's easy. So bottom line, I can't begin to stress, I can't say it enough. But there are some tricks to running them, and I will do the videos for those in the Facebook group and further down the line. That's all I got for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Happy Easter. And remember, a couple things. Leave the small fish for the boat behind you. And anytime you're fishing, it's all good. Thank you.